It was one of those Chicago mornings that looked like a photograph, cold enough to see your breath, gray enough to blur the skyline. People rushed along the sidewalks outside St. Jude's Children's Rehabilitation Center, bundled in scarves, gripping coffee cups like lifelines. The world moved fast, but not everyone. On the worn bench beside the clinic's revolving doors sat a boy, 10 years old, black. His coat had more threads than fabric, and one sleeve was safety pinned near the elbow. His name was Jaden Brooks, and he held a notebook in his lap like it mattered more than anything in the world. He wasn't begging. He wasn't loud. He just drew, quietly, watching, waiting. People passed by without looking. They always did, until a silver BMW SUV pulled into the handicap space out front, engine purring like it had nothing to prove. The door opened, and out stepped Richard Whitmore, white, late 50s, tan coat, leather gloves, and a face drawn tight with years of responsibility. In his arms he carried Emily, his 8-year-old daughter, paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident 6 months ago. She didn't speak much anymore, not since the day they lost everything that mattered. Richard adjusted her blanket as they approached the entrance, his eyes flicking to the boy on the bench. "Sir," the boy said suddenly, voice firm but not loud, like it knew how to cut through noise. Richard paused. "I can help your daughter walk again," Jaden said, looking up, eyes steady. Richard didn't even stop walking. He muttered, "Not today, kid," like brushing off a mosquito. He didn't mean to be cruel. It just came out that way. The cold, the hopelessness, the absurdity of it all. Inside, the routine repeated. Doctors nodded solemnly. Therapists offered sympathetic charts, and phrases like plateaued progress and neurological limitations buzzed through the fluorescent air. Richard sat stiffly in a chair, his hand on Emily's shoulder, but his mind somewhere else. That boy, the words. He didn't sound crazy. He didn't even look desperate. He looked certain. When they came back outside, the wind had picked up. Jaden was still there, his pencil shading the page, his legs crossed like he had all the time in the world. Richard lingered this time, not out of belief, out of confusion. Emily tilted her head toward the boy, her voice barely above a whisper. "He doesn't look dumb, Daddy." Richard exhaled through his nose. "He doesn't look much of anything," he said, but the words came out wrong. Too hard. He hated himself for that. Still, something made him turn back. He took a step toward the boy. "You serious?" Richard asked, trying not to sound defensive. "This isn't some prank, is it?" Jaden didn't look up. He turned a page, blew on the edge of the paper, then said calmly, "Just give me 1 hour. Tomorrow, Lincoln Park." "Noon!" Then he went back to drawing, like the conversation was over. Richard stood there for a beat, hands clenching and unclenching in his coat pockets. Then he turned and walked to his car. All the way home, Emily didn't say a word. She just held her small stuffed rabbit and stared out the window, quiet. But just before they pulled into their driveway, she said, "We could go, right? Just to see." Richard didn't answer. That night, long after Emily was tucked in and the house had gone still, Richard stood by the window in his study, scotch in hand, phone buzzing with unanswered messages. The street lights cast long shadows across his desk. He had money, connections, specialists, and nothing had worked. But a boy in a torn coat had spoken with more conviction than any doctor, and for the first time in months, Richard wasn't entirely sure what he believed. The clock struck midnight, and he still hadn't said no. Lincoln Park looked nothing like a place where miracles might happen. The grass was brittle, the benches faded, and the air carried that biting Midwest chill that made your bones whisper complaints before your brain could catch up. It was just past noon when Richard's BMW pulled up to the curb. The engine clicked softly as it cooled. He sat behind the wheel a moment longer than necessary. Emily, bundled in her lavender coat and hat with the pom-pom, was humming softly. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't silent either. "Do you see him?" she asked. Richard looked around, and there he was, Jaden Brooks. Same coat, same taped shoes, but this time he had a canvas duffel bag at his side and a towel spread out on the grass beside the old oak tree. There was a tennis ball, a water bottle, a folded-up cloth, and a microwaved pouch of something that steamed faintly in the air. He wasn't playing. He was waiting. Richard stepped out first, then unbuckled Emily and carefully lifted her from the car. He didn't say a word as he pushed her wheelchair across the gravel path. Jaden stood up when they approached, nodding politely. "Hi again," the boy said, voice steady. He didn't reach out, didn't make a show, just stood there, calm and ready. Richard narrowed his eyes. "This is the part where I regret coming." Jaden gave a small shrug. "You don't have to stay, but you should watch." Emily raised her hand in a quiet wave. Jaden smiled. "Hi, Emily." She blinked. "You remembered my name?" "You said it yesterday. I remember things that matter." Richard sat on the bench nearby, arms folded, eyes like steel. "What exactly are you planning to do?" Jaden crouched and opened his bag. "What my mom taught me. She was a physical therapist. Before she passed." He pulled out the warm rice pack and gently laid it across Emily's thighs. She flinched slightly. "Too hot?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, it feels nice." Jaden nodded. "That's how it starts." He moved slowly, deliberately, massaging lightly through the fabric, explaining each motion as he went. His fingers didn't press hard. They coaxed, drew attention to places that had gone silent for too long. Richard leaned forward. "You've done this before." Jaden didn't look up. "Every week, at the shelter, with veterans, old folks. Some just wanted to feel like someone hadn't forgotten them." "And that makes you qualified?" Richard asked. "No," Jaden said, "but it makes me familiar." Emily giggled just once, and it broke something in Richard's chest. Jaden looked up at her. "You like cartoons?" She nodded. "Bluey." He smiled. "Me too. I like the dad." Emily looked at him curiously. "You don't have a dad?" Jaden shook his head. "Not one I ever knew, just my mom. And now, not even her." Richard stiffened. Jaden moved onto her knees, rotating gently. "Tell me if anything feels weird, okay?" "Okay." They kept going like that, gentle stretches, soft questions, laughter like raindrops hitting a frozen pond. 20 minutes in, Emily gasped softly. "Wait." Jaden stopped. "What is it?" I felt warm in my knees, like something moving. Richard stood. "Could just be blood flow," he said quickly. Too quickly. Jaden didn't flinch. Sometimes that's the first sign. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Richard didn't reply. He sat back down. Jaden continued the massage, humming softly under his breath. Emily watched him, curious now, awake in a way she hadn't been for weeks. By the time he packed up, her cheeks were flushed pink, not from the cold, but from something else. Life. "I'll come back next Sunday," Jaden said as he folded the towel. Richard walked him part way to the park's edge. "Where do you live, kid?" Jaden hesitated. "Right now? With a friend. Sometimes the shelter, if there's room." "You're homeless." Jaden shrugged. "I don't like that word. It makes it sound like I'm broken." Richard swallowed. "You want a ride?" "I walk. It helps me think." Richard stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" Jaden turned slowly. "Because someone has to, and because she smiled." Then he disappeared down the street, the duffel bouncing against his side like a badge of honor. That night, Richard didn't open his laptop. He didn't take business calls. He sat on the edge of Emily's bed, brushing her hair back behind her ear. She looked up at him. "Do you think he's magic?" Richard shook his head. "I don't know what he is. I think he's kind, like Mom was." Richard's breath hitched. "Do you think I'll walk again?" she asked, quieter now. He didn't answer right away. Then finally, "I think. If anyone can help you remember how, it might be him." She smiled. "Good. I think so too." The week passed slowly, but Sunday came again like clockwork. Jaden was there early, setting up with the same towel and rice pack, but now with a second water bottle and a peanut butter sandwich neatly wrapped in foil. He never said where he got the food. Richard brought an extra blanket and a foldable mat this time. He didn't say why. Emily greeted Jaden with a grin so bright it made the park seem less gray. They went through the same routine, but now Richard watched more carefully. He memorized Jaden's hand placements, his tone, the rhythm. It wasn't textbook therapy, but it was something the clinics had lost: humanity. At the end of the session, Jaden touched Emily's foot and asked, "Do you feel this?" She blinked. "Maybe, I think so. Like a tickle?" Richard's eyes widened. Jaden smiled, but not smugly, just with quiet confidence. "The nerves are still talking. You just have to keep listening." Richard didn't offer money this time. He offered trust. And Jaden, for the first time, accepted a ride home. Only he didn't give an address. He asked to be dropped at a corner near the shelter. "It's safer if I don't bring attention." Richard wanted to argue, but something in the boy's eyes stopped him. "You'll be there next week?" he asked. Jaden nodded. "Always." One night later that week, Richard caught himself looking up free medical training for teens on Google. He didn't know what he was doing, but something about the boy had changed him, not just the results, the courage. Emily was doing small exercises on her own now, stretching, moving her toes, laughing. Jaden had brought something into their lives that wasn't medicine, wasn't logic. It was something no one could explain, and Richard, for the first time in years, didn't need a reason to believe it. He just did. The cold didn't leave, but it softened. By the fifth Sunday, Jaden wasn't just expected, he was part of the rhythm. Emily no longer waited quietly in the car. She asked when they'd get there. She waved when she saw him. Her legs twitched now just slightly, but often. She could wiggle her toes on command, not always, but enough. Richard didn't question it any more. He just showed up, brought coffee, sat on the mat, watched, learned, and once he even smiled. It wasn't until the 7th week that things changed. Jaden arrived later than usual, no bounce in his step, no notebook, no smile. Richard noticed right away. "You okay?" Jaden hesitated. "Didn't sleep much." "Bad night?" Jaden looked away. "Didn't have a bed." Richard didn't speak. Not immediately. Later that afternoon, as Emily tried to press her knees together with Jaden's guidance, Richard crouched beside them and said it. "We have a guest room. It's warm. Private. Just for a while." Jaden didn't look up. "People say that. Then they take it back." "I won't." Jaden's hands paused over Emily's knees. His voice was small. "Why?" Richard's answer was simple. "Because you helped my daughter believe again." That night, Jaden came home with them. A mattress, clean sheets, a real door he could close. He didn't speak much, but he slept 12 hours straight. And in the morning, he helped Emily move her legs again. They weren't just twitching anymore. They were moving. It happened on the 9th Sunday. They didn't plan for it. No cameras, no onlookers, just the three of them. Jaden warmed the rice pack. Richard adjusted the mat. Emily looked different, steady, like she already knew. Jaden kneeled in front of her, his eyes locked on hers. "You ready?" She nodded. Richard moved behind her, his hands under her arms. Jaden gently held her legs, aligning them. "Okay," he whispered. "On 3, 1, 2, 3." Richard lifted slightly. Jaden guided the knees, and Emily stood. Her legs trembled, her breath caught, her arms reached out, wavering. But she stood. Richard froze. "Emily?" She turned her head toward him, tears in her eyes. "I'm okay." Jaden let go. Richard let go, and Emily stayed up. 2 seconds, 3, then a step. Tiny, unsteady, then another. She stumbled, fell forward, right into Richard's arms, but she was laughing. Loud, free, beautiful. Jaden stepped back, eyes wide but calm. "You did it," Richard said, kneeling with her. Emily looked up. "He said I would." Jaden smiled gently. "I said we'd try." News spread. A nurse walking her dog saw the moment. She told her sister, who told a colleague, who told the hospital, who called Richard. By the next Sunday, other families came. 2 wheelchairs, 1 walker, curious eyes, hope. Jaden looked to Richard. "You don't have to," Richard said. "I want to," Jaden replied. That day, Jaden gave up his hour with Emily and worked with 2 new kids. He taught their parents how to use a rice pack, how to encourage movement without fear, how to listen. He spoke with the children like they weren't broken. "You're not weak," he told one boy. "You're just learning how to be strong in a different way." Emily watched it all, smiling from her chair. That night in the car, she whispered, "I like watching him help people." Richard looked at her in the rear view. "Me too." By the 12th Sunday, it wasn't just therapy. It was something bigger. Families showed up early. Volunteers brought coffee. Someone printed flyers that read, "Movement Sundays, noon, Lincoln Park." No name, no organization, just trust. Jaden kept showing up, coat still too big, shoes still taped, towel still folded neatly in the same spot. He never asked for money, never wanted credit. But people noticed. A reporter asked for an interview. Jaden shook his head. Not about me, it's about them. When she asked why he kept coming, he gave the only answer that made sense. Because they smiled. One Sunday, Emily did something different. She stood, without hands, without help, 3 full steps, then another. When she turned to Richard, she said, "I don't feel scared anymore." He knelt down, hugging her, whispering, "You're my miracle." Then he looked at Jaden. "You changed our lives." Jaden shrugged. She changed her own. That night, Richard stood in the doorway of Jaden's room. "You ever think about school again?" Jaden was sketching. He looked up. "Sometimes." "You could do something with this. What you do, it's rare." Jaden nodded. "I want to help people, like my mom did." Richard stepped inside. "Then let's find a way to make that happen." Jaden smiled. "Okay." That winter, the park stayed full of movement, of laughter, of life. Emily wasn't the only one walking anymore. And Jaden, once the boy nobody noticed, was now the one everyone looked to. But he never acted like he was the answer. He just kept showing up with his towel, his tennis ball, his belief, because sometimes the miracle isn't in what you fix. It's in the moment you remind someone that they aren't broken.